What's up guys, my name's Honcho and welcome to another squad video. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you 5 tips that will help you massively improve your anti-armor game by delving into the world of anti-tank guided missile launchers and how to use them effectively. For those who don't know, anti-tank missile launchers, or ATGM for short, are designed to take out vehicles from range and inflict maximum damage whilst doing so via a wire-guided projectile. In squad, they have a maximum range of approximately 2 kilometers. They cost 600 construction to build and 500 ammo per shot. You can either build these on the defensive point to attack any advancing vehicles, or you can go somewhere on the map and set up a radio specifically for your ATGM launcher. Just make sure you tell your team your intentions, as they may have somewhere good for you to get set up that they've done so on a previous game. I always refer to these as point and click adventures, as you've probably seen in some of my YouTube shorts, but that's because that is essentially how they work. You point at the target and click to fire. Wherever you point your mouse, the projectile will follow. There's a few to play with in Jensen's range to get a feel for. When you fire one, there's usually a delay of 1 to 2 seconds before it's launched, so keep that in mind when firing upon a target. And don't forget, you press Q to zoom in. Anyway, let's get on into this video. First up is location. Location is probably the most important part of setting up for an effective ATGM launcher. You want to look for somewhere that keeps you secluded, but at the same time must have a wide view of the battlefield, or on a route that has a lot of traffic. The more clear lines of sight you can get means you have more angles to attack from. Maps like Yeeho, Gorodok, Scorpo and Kohat have layers that have a lot of armor on them, and also have areas that gives you fantastic and commanding vantage points of the battlefield. Setting a launcher up at the end of a street, or essentially looking down an alley, may be great for that one specific enemy push, but it's going to be useless for anything else. So really think long and hard about where you're going to place this launcher. Naturally, if you set yourself up too exposed, you can easily be swatted from range by an enemy tank or a helicopter with a door gunner. I see this happen quite commonly on maps like Mutahar, where people decide to set one up on a roof of a building. Also, be very careful when being resupplied. Someone seeing a heli landing by you will more than likely give you away. Next up is helicopters. Shooting down helicopters with these is a bit of an art form, and a great deal of luck is usually involved, especially with all of the rubber banding that goes on. However, taking them out is incredibly valuable, as you are denying the enemy team its fastest method of infantry transport and logistics. A good practice to near guarantee a heli hit is to wait for it to slow down or flare. This is when the heli pilot likes to flex over everyone in the server by doing a relatively fast landing that involves a banked 180-degree turn before landing. This is your window to strike, because that's when they are the most vulnerable, especially if they flare to end up hovering 50 to 100 meters in the air. It's usually caused by an inexperienced pilot. Distance depending, once you see them starting their flare maneuver, that is when you will click to fire, because once they stall out, your projectile will be well on its way to hit them before they dip down, and then they're destroyed before they even know what hit them. However, if they do manage to land out of your sight, just wait for them to pop back up again, because they will still be going rather slowly. Okay. Next up is target priority. Some days you end up with a lot of ammo and a lot of targets to choose from, and others you only have 1 shot's worth of ammo and still have that same target-rich environment. This is where you need to work out what is the biggest threat or biggest loss to the enemy team. Personally, I will always go for a tank over anything else. It's 15 tickets at the end of the day and one of the most deadly ground assets. Even if it's just an immobilization shot, that couple of minutes while that tank cannot move can either allow your commander to put an airstrike on it, or allows friendly AT and armor to move in to finish off the job. Tanks generally take 2 shots to kill unless you get a very lucky hit on the ammo rack, but generally, if they have already been softened up by your team and you hit the right spot, then that's them finished. Aiming at their turret is another good place to hit as well. Again, you may not destroy the vehicle, but you can completely disable that module, and that will force them back to main or a repair station, so that is them out of the game for maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes. When firing upon a tank, you're probably better off aiming for the flattest side possible, because if you hit somewhere angled, it is very likely that the shot can actually deflect or do no damage. So sometimes it's better to guarantee that you take that track off than it is to try and get a side penetration at a glancing blow. Infantry fighting vehicles and APCs generally are instantly set on fire after a good hit, and other vehicles like scout cars and logistics trucks will be instantly destroyed. And yes, if you really want to commit war crimes, you can take out infantry and other ATGM placements. As someone who runs tanks a lot in squad, ATGMs are generally the thing that I'm most nervous of, unless it's a stream sniper on one, in which case they can get in the fucking bin. Okay, so now we're going to move on to target tracking. If your target is moving, you can still hit them, so long as you have a steady hand and you can do a tiny bit of trigonometry in your head. Depending on the speed and direction of the enemy vehicle, sometimes you will have to aim slightly in front of them to make sure you hit. Make sure your mouse has as much space to move as you can give yourself, and if it's possible, lower your mouse's DPI slightly. This only works if you have a mouse that has a button you can press to change this, but this just helps you to be much smoother with your aim and stops the projectile from zigzagging. And finally, something that is extremely important for you and your team on a whole, and my final tip is to do with when you are finished with it. If you end up having to leave your ATGM or you get found by the enemy, make sure you dig down either the launcher or the radio. Leaving a launcher behind may sound pretty harmless, especially if it's out of ammo, but it'll be sod's law. Some drone heli pilot rearms it without looking at the map, and suddenly the enemy infantry finds it, they can now use it against you. The same goes for if you get found. It's the last thing you want to happen is for it to fall into the enemy hands. I mean, we all know there's nothing more fun than using an enemy emplacement against them, but when it happens to you, it's not so much fun. Also, digging down your own radio saves your team 20 tickets. So if you think about it, this step's probably the most important one, because if things go south, everyone's just going to start shouting at you. And there you have it, 5 tips that will help you along your point and click adventure. Some of these tips also transfer over to the Bradley MBMP, as they also run ATGMs. Don't forget, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Links to all of my socials and Discord are in the description down below. Thank you all for watching, take care, and I will see you in the next video.